Everybody say they want to be in the NBA. Everybody say they want to play professional basketball. But are you willing to do what it takes? Just because you got drafted, you just getting started. You got to figure out how to stay in there.
Former Knick, Raymond Felton. Raymond Felton, that's who the crowd chanted. Paul George joined again.
Raymond Bernard Felton Jr., born June 26, 1984. Today's feature is a player in 2005 that was considered on the same level as Chris Paul and Deron Williams leaving college, drafted right behind them both in the NBA draft lottery. Of course, Williams and Paul were known as the top point guards in the game for almost a decade, beginning around 2006. Paul, however, never seemed to have lost his position as one of the best point men in the game, always rejuvenating his career, and he was an all-star for the 12th time just last season. Weren't for personal issues in Utah and losing interest later on in his career, eventually leaving the game much sooner than expected, Deron Williams would still be a valuable point guard in today's league. Chris, with a championship, could be regarded as a top 5 point guard of all time. Without it, he'll still be known as one of the best to ever do it of his generation. Raymond Felton was always right there trailing those two, and for 50 games with the Knicks 2010-11, he may have been right at that level. Doesn't matter because leaving high school, a lot was expected of Felton. He was the Naismith Prep Player of the Year, #1 rated point guard in his class. Some even had him the 3rd best recruit in the class with the likes of Melo, Amare and Lenny Cooke. McDonald's All-American, you name it. Felton accomplished it up to that point and was heading to a high school player's dream school, North Carolina, to feature as their point guard for the next 4 years or whenever his skills reached NBA level. Fast forward, Felton would eventually hit the league a college champion, matured point guard, and given an opportunity to lead a new, young franchise with all the space in the world to be who he wanted and compete with the best at his position year after year, and hopefully at some point lead the team to a playoff berth. He missed that mark for the first 4 years of his career, and in the 5th was swept in the first round by Orlando in 2009-2010. Felton, to me, wasn't a horrible player. Some may have called him the worst in the game at some point, but that may have been a little harsh and short-sighted because on a good team, Felton could actually be pretty good. He averaged 9 assists in 2011 with the Knicks, and that's before they even got Carmelo Anthony. Unfortunately, he wasn't on many great teams that made use of his complementary talent. Raymond Felton still has yet to retire from the NBA. He's instead allowing his career to end on its own, in silence. His love for the game can allow him to hang it up, still waiting for one last send-off. One that isn't likely. Here's why even with a solid NBA career, Raymond Felton's growth was stunted. Salute to Jay Coleman for this request. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. Raymond Felton was a 6'2" point guard from Marion, South Carolina that was a star and a winner at that level, to say the least. For his high school career, he won 104 games and lost just 9. He led his teams to 2 state championships and set records for points scored and threes made, becoming South Carolina's Mr. Basketball, Naismith Prep Player of the Year, and a McDonald's All-American. He was the #1 rated point guard in the class and ranked in the top 3 all positions by some recruiting services. Obviously highly recruited, he landed on North Carolina, rounding out one of the top freshman classes and best overall teams in the country. Stunt #1, ranked too high. Expectation is something very tricky to fulfill because it's usually calibrated by people outside yourself, and everyone that watches you play has their own. Nonetheless, Raymond Felton couldn't have built his expectations any taller, going from the high school career he had to his ultra-successful college years, winning a national championship as a junior, sticking it out with his freshman recruiting class, and delivering on the big prize come March. Winning, like you've probably heard a million times, changes everything and means a great deal for all involved. Going back to Chris Paul, had he won against the Bucks in 2021, he would be talked about today as one of the best to ever do it. When you win a national title, each player of significant contribution gets a boost in draft stock, and whether the player is good enough for it or not, it comes, and with the right moves, can lead straight to the NBA. Ask Deron Lamb, Kyle Wiltjer, or Marquise Teague, or the 2016 Villanova team, and those players benefiting from winning it all. Winning or playing with star power. Ask Eric Bledsoe, classic beneficiary of star power. Winning placed Felton, who was at the point of North Carolina's 05 championship, scoring 17 total points, the game's final 2 points that sealed the win at the foul line, adding 4 threes and 7 assists. For a highly ranked recruit, he couldn't have ended his stay any better. Going into the draft, his name was hot, as it should be, and the draft beyond Felton, Paul, and Williams at point took a huge fall off, as another wasn't picked until Nate Robinson and Jarrett Jack, 21 and 22. Nate really considered a combo guard. In hindsight, most clearly, Felton had no choice but to be picked high if your team needed a point guard, and Charlotte could use a lot. Who better than the backyard national champion? Skill and potential-wise though, Raymond didn't have the upside like Paul and Williams. He was quick and even fast at one point, but always a heavier point guard that got worse in the NBA, didn't play much defense, magnet to a screen, and a below-average deep shooter. He benefited playing on North Carolina's roster in 2005 and the perfect point guard draft for him. Skill-wise, it didn't match. Stunt number 2, traded from the Knicks. Felton entered the league as the 5th overall pick, and in his first 5 years with Charlotte, he wasn't bad at all. And he was durable. And in 2010, helped the Bobcats to their first ever winning record and playoff series. Not quite the potential expected individually as far as production from Felton, but certainly not a bust. And then he leaves Charlotte and signs with the Knicks months later, a team I always felt he was a great fit for. He and Amare signed there together and were playing great before Amare's injuries and the Knicks blowing up the roster to land Denver star Carmelo Anthony. Raymond Felton, after just 54 games with the Knicks, was included in that 3-team deal and was averaging 17 points, 9 assists, playing great defense at 1.8 steals a game at 38 minutes a game. He was prime and confident at that point. He went to Denver and had to sit behind Ty Lawson at point and didn't produce well in that role, soon expressing his desire to be elsewhere. Denver then traded him to Portland after 21 games, and it's been downhill from there. Portland drafted Dame the next year and had no need for Felton, and traded him back to the Knicks in 2012. He played his final solid year in the league 12-13 and went on a small journey ever since. Had the Knicks not go after Anthony, I think those Felton-Amare-led teams would have done much better than the Carmelo Knicks era. Stunt number 3, lost a step. On the Knicks for the second time, it was clear Felton had lost a step. He was averaging 9 points and 5 assists when he was arrested in 2014 for felony gun charges and suspended 4 games by the league. That turned into 31 games into the season because of an ankle injury suffered in preseason, playing 29 games and averaging his worst stats across the board in the NBA. Felton had lost a few steps and added a few more pounds. Portland were frustrated with him for just as much. He struggled with his weight from then on, and it was clear Felton had lost more than a step. He was serviceable until 2018-19 before becoming an unrestricted free agent. He hasn't been picked up nor retired. What he was definitely past his prime since 29 years old. All in all, Raymond Felton was a solid player. Very smart and really fun to watch, especially when he was with the Knicks the first very short time. He's had a great career before the league and a nice journey of not being a bust, but much could have went better in and out his control. Salute, much respect, but for these reasons, his growth was stunted. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.